So for the algebra, let me just make a kind of a general, a general guideline. In my opinion, you want to avoid doing algebra unless really necessary. Um, I've got kind of a weird opinion about that though, so um, you know, you can disagree with that for sure at some points. But basically with the algebra questions, there's really kind of three things that matter. So number one is translation. Basically your ability to read English and turn it into math, right? Or, then that involves a couple things. It involves creating variables and then creating equations using those variables, right? Second thing that matters is your ability to solve, okay? So this is the stuff that this is basically what you learn in high school, is how to undo the operations to isolate a variable and get your solution. The third thing that matters is your ability to check. So when you learn, let's make this very easy. So when you learn algebra, what they do, they teach you is how to isolate the variable. So they say stuff like do the same thing to both sides of the equation, and so you do that. So you subtract 3 from both sides, and then you have to divide by 2, but you have to divide by 2 on both sides. So you get this x equals 1. So that would be solving it, right? But then the next part of the process is to check it. And this is the part that a lot of people don't want to do, but it's actually the real step, which is taking that number and feeding it back into the original equation to see what happens. So if I take 2 times 1 plus 3, calculate that, see what it is, right? Well, 2 times 1 is 2, and then adding 3, 2 plus 3 is 5. And that needs to match the number that you're given in the original equation. So what I believe, based on my experience with GMAT, is that the translation step is a very, very important step. You need to be able to identify where equations are given to you in English. You need to be careful with choosing letters that represent logical, give you logical meanings. The solving, not so much. I actually try to give this less emphasis. I think it's actually less important. The checking, I think, is extremely important, because I think the real key to improving on math is eliminating careless mistakes. It's very easy when you're doing algebra to make some kind of careless mistake, but the way that you avoid that careless mistake is you take that number and you plug it into the original equation and check it. And one reason why this is so powerful, especially on GMAT, is that they've given you the 5 answer choices. And so in this situation, you definitely can use the 5 answers. So you can actually skip the solving step if necessary and just plug in the answer choices to see if they make the equation true or not. And that actually is definitely a viable strategy. So, like for instance, it'd be a little bit weird to do this, but it wouldn't be wrong if they asked you for the value of x, and the answers were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they told you 2x plus 3 is equal to 5. You certainly could just do this and calculate what happens when you take 2 times 1 plus 3 and get 5. 2 times 2 plus 3 and get 7, and so on. And then check out the one that's correct and eliminate the ones that are wrong. You definitely can do that. And it feels kind of weird for a lot of people because the focus on high school algebra is on the solving step, but in GMAT, it's actually the other way around. In GMAT, it's all about the translation, and it's all about the checking, because that's how you actually prove to yourself that you got the question correct. So let me give you kind of a silly example, but you guys will see it. So this is a long story problem, and one thing about this question is, I'll let you guys work through it in a minute and read it for yourself on your own. But like many story problems, what it does is it involves kind of 2 scenarios. It involves kind of an initial setup and then a change to that setup, or often what I just kind of call the before and the after. So you kind of get 2 sets of numbers, like what happens with the store at their beginning inventory, and then what happens to the store with their ending inventory. So you should kind of have a 2-stage calculation here. Let me back out here and let you guys work on it, and I'll come back and show you how I would solve it. Okay, so you have a minute and a half. Okay. All right, so do you have your answers ready here? Okay, so please choose the best. Hmm. Okay, well, I don't have a lot of votes, but it looks like half for C, also some for B, and even one for D, I think. So let me show maybe two different ways of thinking about this problem. So one is sort of more through algebra, and one is more through plug-in. So to be honest, I don't actually think this is a super difficult question, but I want to try to encourage you guys to be flexible in your thinking and try to look at the two different approaches I'm going to show you and think about how they're similar, how they're different, and how you can maybe adapt your style when you're doing the homework and when you're getting ready for the real GMAT. So let me do the algebra type approach first. I think it'll be more familiar to most of you guys. So we want to know how many shelves are in the store. So I'll make that my variable, I'll make that S. Okay. So then I've got these two situations, the before and the after. So in the original situation, we've got 10 S caps. So we have S shelves, we've got 10 caps on each shelf, so we just multiply those numbers, 10 times S, that should be the number of caps. Then they're going to sell 16 caps. Okay, so now we're going to look at the after situation. So each shelf was left with 7 caps, except for the final shelf, which held 9 caps. So what I need to do is I need to take 7, and I need to multiply that times S minus 1. So this exception here means there's one shelf that's not counted, so it's 7 times S minus 1. And then I'm going to add on 9. Okay. And so you should just read through all the statements here, just make sure I translate this correctly. We have 10 caps per shelf. We sell 16. We have 7 on all the shelves except 1, and that shelf has 9 more caps. So that should represent the number of caps, right? And then you can solve this and simplify it a couple different ways. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but maybe 7 S minus 1, and then plus 25, and then this will be 10S times 7S minus 7 plus 25. So that'll be 3S equal to 18. And then finally, S will be equal to 6. And 6 is the correct target. C is the correct answer. So that's approach number 1. That's just a direct algebra approach. Just translate the problem, solve it, and then get your solution down here. So now what I want to do is I want to go to a plug-in approach. And think about how that would work. So first is the fact that the 5 answer choices are in order. This is not always true on the GMAT, but it's true about 90% of the time. Okay, so when that happens, normally the logical place to start is in the middle. So I would focus on the middle answer first. So the reason you do that is because it could be the correct answer, right? In which case you're just done. But if it's not the correct answer, you should be able to compare and decide if it's too big or too small. And because you started in the middle, that means you can find the correct answer by moving up or down and getting it fairly quickly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of work from left to right. And I'm going to do this almost as if I'm doing Microsoft Excel. Okay, so first I'm going to figure out what 10s is. So 60 would be the starting number of my caps. Okay, so I'm starting with choice C, right? Then I'm going to subtract 16. And so that number is going to now be 44. Okay, so I'm going to hold on to that number for a second. Then I'm going to think about what this 7s minus 1 is going to be. Okay. So that's going to be 7 times 5. Okay. And then I'm also just going to add on 9. 9's a constant, that doesn't change. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare these two values. So it looks like there should be 44 caps left. If I take 7 times 5, I get 35. 35 plus 9 is equal to 44. So having seen 44 and 44, I know that that checks. That means I know that this answer, C, is the correct answer, and I would just stop right here and pick choice C. Okay, so notice that I have done the translation. I essentially have my equation up here, but instead of solving that equation using algebra, what I'm doing is I'm just taking a number and I'm just plugging into that equation, and like I literally just think like it's a Microsoft Excel, and I'm just going from one column to the next column, calculating the numbers to see if they actually match. So if it's not totally clear to what I'm doing here, let me show you what happens if I do a wrong answer. Okay, so let me do B, all right? So if B was the correct answer, which it isn't, but if it was, then there'd be a total of 50 caps. And after selling 16, there'd be 34 caps remaining. Okay, so there should be 34 caps. Then I'm going to take 7 times 4 plus 9. Okay, and that's going to be 28 plus 9. That'll be equal to 37. And at this point, you should go, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. This number is too small. Right? And so this can't be the correct answer. All right. Okay, see you, Charlie. So if you plug in an answer choice and it's wrong, you don't need to freak out about it. Just cross out that answer choice and then try to figure out how to adjust which way you want to move. The reason why I say that this is too small is because this is based on 10s. This is based on 7s. Since this one has actually a bigger coefficient, it's the one that's going to be more sensitive when you change that value of s. So I actually would care about this number 34 more. It's the one that makes a bigger step. Anyway, if you start with C though, on this one, at least you're lucky enough that that doesn't come up, and you can just pick the right answer anyway. So basically, the difference between these two approaches is that I think in terms of the number of calculations that you need to do, it's actually about the same. So here, like in this approach, let me go back to my normal color. Like in this approach, I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to do about 5 calculations. 16 plus 9 7 times 1, 25 minus 7, 10 minus 7, and then 18 divided by 3. I've got to do about 5 calculations this way. If I go this way, I've also got to do about 5 calculations. I've got to take 6 times 10, I've got to subtract 14, I've got to take 7 times 5, and I've got to add 9. So it's still about 4 or 5 calculations. Okay, but to me, the advantage of this approach is it's very, very direct because I'm going to an answer, and I know that answer is right as soon as I see the numbers match. Okay, if you go this way, you can do it, but you can also make a careless mistake. And so my whole thing is, you know, because I want to get the highest score possible in math, the way you do that is you have to eliminate careless mistakes. And so a lot of people resist doing this and they don't want to make a change, but I definitely want you guys to think about this, about being flexible, about trying to change your approach. If you can master this approach of just getting to the answer choices and being as focused on the 5 answers as you possibly can, you're going to eliminate so many careless mistakes and your score is going to move up so much, even if you don't learn anything else about math. Okay. Questions about that one? Okay. Benyu is here. And I think Priska Gurmani is here. Okay. So a couple more people came in. Well, it's about halfway now. Let's see, it's 9:34. So why don't we take about a 5-minute break here? And yeah, I'll see you guys in 5 minutes, so you can get some refreshment or whatever. And we'll start again at 9:35, 9:39. Say 9:40 to make it easy to remember.